You'd be surprised how often the topic in a chaplaincy visit turns into storytelling. And it can go really quickly from checking in to the patient going on a tangent, like, let's see. Well, maybe you're checking in about how he slept last night. And the patient could say, it rained, and even though I couldn't hear the rain from inside the hospital, I can see on my window all the raindrops, and it reminded me of this time that my family went camping at this cabin. And it rained at the cabin. And that night he slept really soundly. And at this point, the chaplain can try to use their agenda and say, okay, check, you slept well because it rained. Great, moving on to the next question. What are your hopes and fears for today? Like a very clinical, I'm going to do my spiritual care assessment sort of agenda. Or the chaplain can say, hey, this patient is talkative. Looks like he is kind of excited to share about that cabin experience. Let me imagine what that cabin looked like. Wow, I just imagined this patient at a different time in his life as a child. And time starts to warp and blend a little bit. And so the chaplain can say, do you have a lot of childhood memories? That was a close-ended question, but that's okay. And the patient might say, yeah, another memory I have is my mother. She made all her own dresses, and she would put them on display. And he might go into detail about what it was like to watch his mother make dresses as a child. It's really interesting how older patients will talk about their parents. It's very interesting that older patients at the end of life will talk about their parents. And so it's important to find out what is important to them, what memories they remember, because that act of reminiscence can do a lot. So the patient might go on and take you on a little journey, and it's just fun to remain curious. I grew up in a home with a piano. Right next to the piano was a grandfather clock. And I would always start practicing on the hour until it rang. And then I would stop and I'd get a snack. Back in the day, we had a mouse problem. So we were always setting traps so the mice didn't come and eat our food. There was a garden in the yard where my parents liked to read their magazines, where we liked to garden, where we sent postcards to our relatives who lived in Germany. Oh my goodness, is that your heritage? Where your family originates from? Yeah, as a matter of fact. When I was 16, we got to travel to Germany for the first time. And that was the first time that I realized that I wanted to be an architect. And so that's what I studied. And the summer after we went to Germany, we traveled to Santa Barbara, California. And that's where I realized I wanted to live in California. I mean, this is just one little foray into one amazing person's life. But as the chaplain listens, they can pick up on how important family was to the patient, how soothing it was to watch his mother do something with her hands that she was good at, how later he followed an interesting sort of similar path of working with his creativity as an architect, maybe not working with his hands in the same way, but designing things that were beautiful, right? Creations. Learning more about heritage, German heritage, love of California through vacation, simple pleasures, home life, right? Maybe a certain amount of privilege growing up playing piano, but still, normal problems like rodents. And there's a way that when a patient connects with a part of themselves that maybe they don't think about now, right, as a patient, parts of them come alive. They feel more connected to themselves. They feel connected to a time when they were younger and healthier, and they feel more whole and human again. Oftentimes when someone is sick, they are reduced to a diagnosis or a prognosis. The person becomes a patient, right? And it's hard not to see them that way, because that's the most important thing right now is, how are you doing? How are you coping? Well, when you connect them with that distant memory that the retelling of can make come alive again, not only do you distract the patient from perhaps some of the symptoms they're feeling or just the monotony of being in a hotel room, but you remind them of their worth, their value, their uniqueness as a human. You celebrate their life. You honor their experiences. Some experiences might come with some sadness or tragedy, right? Oh, that Santa Barbara trip was the last family vacation before my parents split up, right? But I always knew I wanted to move there so I could remember a time when we were a happy family together, because later they sold the home. That was not a place I could return to without sadness, right? And maybe the patient will weave back to an emotion, right? And then you can explore, how does that emotion feel in your body right now? And this is not asking as a medical provider, asking about physical symptoms, but asking about how they experience something called total pain, which is how someone's emotional distress can impact their perception of pain on a physical level. Because as we know, pain is what the patient says it is, right? There's no objective way to measure pain. There's no painometer that you can apply to every person. No, it's up to the patient how much they're in pain. And so there's a time to not beat around the bush, and there's a time to hold the emotions that need to be expressed and felt and released. And there's a time that you can let the patient be transported to a different time, but the same self. And so facilitating life review is a very powerful spiritual care intervention. And it's amazing from the chaplain's point of view how much you learn about humanity, about people, historical things that you would have never, ever been interested in or exposed to. But when you have a personal connection, it all really comes alive and you get transported beyond the little checklist of the things to ask and the things to do, right? The hospital room comes alive. You can see the cabin, you can see the dressmakers. It's really sacred. Holding space isn't just about being a good listener. It's about reflecting back at the crucial moments, remembering things, and maybe at the end of the visit, the chaplain gets to bless the patient, right? I honor your life, the ways that you loved adventure, that you loved being with your family, how much it meant to you to experience things with your loved ones. The fact that you mentioned all these memories that were not experienced alone, but with people you love, shows me that it is important for you not to be alone. And I want you to know that you are not alone even now. Even though perhaps your parents have passed on, that you are not going through this alone, that you are supported, and there are people going through this experience with you. Do you see how you can honor the memories and also tie it to now, right? And it's different from a platitude of, oh, we're all here for you, right? We care about you. Sure, patient knows that. But when you've really connected to a part of themselves that has experienced that, by the way, neuroscience shows that when our brain thinks about something, imagines something, it doesn't know the difference between reality and the imagination. And so the patient has literally, through telling the story, the patient's brain has experienced that feeling of connection and warmth and family. You have given that patient that experience without doing anything. That's the beauty of this work, is you don't have to prove to the patient, I'm here for you. You're gonna get through this. You have resilience. You're special, right? You can say all these things. That does not activate the brain to actually feel and experience it. It's just amazing when a good chaplain can hold good space. It actually feels more effortless. It takes good sensitivity, skill, and nuance, but you don't have to strive or try so hard. And the patient can tell when you're trying really hard. And so when you're at ease, they can become at ease, and everybody wins. So that is a transformative experience that can transport both the caregiver and the care receiver to another time, another place, and another feeling. Try it sometime.